Hello, you are welcome to the TheRookieAnalyst Excel Course Series. In this lesson, we will be working with Excel formulas and functions hands-on. We have previously dived into the overview of Excel formulas and functions, understanding the basic principle, the techniques. And if you have not seen that video, we advise you watch that video before proceeding with the hands-on in this lesson. So let's get started. This is our Tip Top Taste Restaurant workbook, and it has multiple worksheets. And we'll be using each of these worksheets to explain one term or the other in Excel. So we have uploaded the worksheets to the LMS, and you can also find it in the descriptions below. There are two versions to the Excel sheet, the Excel workbook, that is the workbook, the plain one without the calculations, and then the complete one with the calculations. So you feel free to follow along as you watch this video. So the first thing we will start with is status bar matrix in Excel. So the status bar matrix in Excel allows you to perform basic calculations without entering any formula. So let's see how this works. So we want to calculate the total revenue for Tip Top Taste Restaurant's product, that is the pizza, burger, and cake. So in Excel, before you start doing anything Excel tells you it's ready here. That's the cell mode. It tells you it's ready for anything you want to do. Let's say you type day here now. It's the mode here changes to enter mode, right? So once you're done with this and you want to edit from this day, and then maybe you want to make it this, it changes to edit mode. So that's the 3 cell modes in Excel. The fourth one is the point mode, which appears when you use your mouse to select a particular cell, usually when writing formulas and functions. So we're going to see that in a couple of seconds. So now let's look at the status bar matrix. So the status bar matrix allows you to do a lot of things like calculating the minimum, the average, and all of that. So let's use it to calculate the totals for the annual revenue. So once you highlight the total revenue that you want to calculate, the annual revenue you want to calculate the total for, you come down here, you see the average. It tells you what the average is, and it also tells you the count, and then the sum. So the sum here we are having 1,700. So now the status bar matrix, you can just click this, and Excel intelligence function copies this automatically to clipboard, and then you paste it here, and that's all. You've calculated the totals. But now there's a challenge with this particular method of doing calculation in Excel. If this value changes to 200, let's say, then this value doesn't change at all, making it look like your calculations was wrong initially. So instead of this, you have to make use of formulas. So another thing with the Excel status bar matrix is you can even customize it by adding other things to it, like the maximum, the minimum, the numerical count, and all of that. So feel free to use this as much as you like. Now next is, let's take this out, and then we're going to use our formula. So remember in the previous lesson we said all Excel formulas start with the equal to. So we have equal to, and then we're going to compute all of this to calculate the total, which is 500 plus 200 plus 950, and then we enter. We have 1,650. So this is just a simple formula, it's simple arithmetic formula. But there's still a problem with this. If this now changes back to 250, this does not change at all. So this is also not advisable for you to use to compute your cells in Excel. So instead of this, we're going to use our mouse to select the cell. And then you could also do this by selecting equal to, and then use B. The cell here is what, B2, right? So you could type B2 plus C2 plus D2, and then you click enter, 17. So if this changes back to 200, then this will also automatically change. So this is more accurate. But you can also optimize this. So instead of you typing, let's take this out now. So instead of typing this, you could just use equal to, and then you use your mouse to select the cell itself. So plus, now you notice when we selected this, it changes to point mode, which is the last cell mode type. So this is more effective because you could just select and then plus, and you select. Notice that Excel gives different color to different cells, so that you can easily troubleshoot or to find what formula is referencing what cell. So now we click enter, we have this calculation. Now the next thing we'll look at is the field handler in Excel. So you remember, look at, once we have this here, it changes to plus signs. So you can use this to drag in Excel and then it brings it down. So these are basics, and gradually in this lesson we'll move to some advanced functions like the logical conditional functions and how we can use them to answer real world questions, right? So now this is the field handler that allows you to just automatically transfer the formula you input in a particular cell into the next one. And then this is relative. This calculates for all of this, and then dragging to this place also calculates for all of this. If there are values here, and then we do this also, is going to calculate for all of this. But because there's no value here, we are having 0. So let's go back. Now we want to calculate the annual profit. So we can simply calculate the annual profit by using equal to, then 500 minus 430 here, which is selecting the cell, and then we click OK. Our annual profit here is 70. So now we want to perform the same calculation here for annual profit for burger as well, and the annual profit for cake. So another way you can do, instead of using the field handler, is just to copy this and then you paste Ctrl C and Ctrl V. So this is where your Excel main keyboard shortcut really helps. You can refer to the cheat sheet that has already been uploaded to the LMS in module 1 of this series. So we're also going to copy this again and then we'll paste here. Now while we drag this here. So remember, initially this was 0, but now it's 405 because they are value there. So the next we're going to do is multiplication, and to calculate multiplication, we use that to calculate for the tax here. So the same thing here, we do equal to, we select annual profit, multiply by tax rate here, which is here, and then we click enter cell G2, and it gives us the tax for pizza. So we can copy this and then we'll paste for burger, but notice you have 0. So this is 0 here. Why is that so? It's simply because the formula we paste is relative, meaning it only calculates for values that are here and the next one. So take note, you see here now, you see it's calculating for H5 and H2, and H2 is empty. But we want it to calculate for G2. So then we'll make it to become absolute reference, right? So now for the absolute referencing, we just have to lock this particular cell here in the formula. And so log this particular in the formula. Remember, in our previous lesson, we mentioned you make use of the $sign. So we just add our dollar to this. Then we change this to G2, and then we also add our dollar to this. And then this locks this. So once we do this, we now have the accurate number. And when we now copy this and we paste here, it's going to give us the accurate number instead of 0. So this is how we use the tax rate. But now imagine if your tax rate, if the data is much and then your tax rate is in another sheet or is in another Excel workbook, then you can make use of the name box to name this particular value so that it will be easy for you to reference. So look at this now. We have this as 15% here, and once you come over here, you're going to see that it is what, G2, and it's called the name box. So we can change the name box to become tax rate, and once we do this, it changes. So imagine we want to perform the same calculation again. We'll just do equal to, and this is 70 here, that's the cell here, multiply by. So instead of looking for where the tax rate is, we could just type tax rate because we've already named it. You can see here. And once we select this and then we click enter, it gives us a formula. So that's that about the name manager. And if you want to see the name, if you want to see, you could use the F3 keyboard shortcut of F3 to bring out all the name managers that is active. Or you could also look at that in the formula. When you come to the formula here, you see formula here, and then you see here it said name manager here. So you come to name manager, it shows you the names we've already done here, which is the tax rate. So if you have plenty names here, this is where you could manage it, and you could edit all the, you could edit this from tax rates. We could change it to tax rate 2, assuming you have tax rate 1. So in case if you have tax rate 2, so that's, then you close. That's that about the name manager. So next we're going to see is the individual profits, right? So division. So let's assume our tax is our profit, our company is owned by Mr. Tiptop, Miss Tiptop, and 2 other partners, right? So that means there are 4 partners and they have equal shares. All you have to do is just put your equal sign, you select the profit, and then you divide it by 4. So that's how to do simple division. And then you want it all over for everything, you just copy paste, you copy paste, and then for this one here, the total, just copy here, and then you paste here, and then you have the total profit here, individual profit. Next is the order of operations. So remember we mentioned that it is important for you to know. So remember in our previous lesson, we mentioned the importance of parentheses and then the order of operations. So we just want to quickly demonstrate. Imagine you have 9, you want to compute 9 plus 3 multiplied by 4. And then we have 9 plus 3 parentheses multiplied by 4. These are typically the same thing. The only thing that separates this is the parentheses here. So if you put an equal sign to this turns into a formula, and then you click enter, it gives you 21. You notice once we do this here, we're going to have a different answer. So it's simply because to tell you Excel follows an order of operations. Moving on is understanding the basic functions in Excel and how to use them to answer questions. Here we have problem statements, and we're going to use some basic functions in Excel to answer this particular questions. So these functions here are one of the most common functions that you use on daily basis. Before you start writing a formula or function, you always start with equal to, right? So now to answer this first question here, which is how much food was sold. So it's just total sum of all of this. We could start by just doing the normal thing we did before and then doing this, but that is the formula, but it's going to be time consuming. So we could just sum it up. So there's a function in Excel that's called sum, and then we select it, you double click to select or use your tab. And the good thing about this is it also shows you the syntax of how it's supposed to appear. You should look at this here, you have number 1, number 2, number 3, so on. So all you just have to do is do this, and then you close the parentheses, and then you enter, and it gives us the sum. And for you to check if this is right or wrong, you could just do this, and then you remember your status bar. You have the same thing here. So the status bar's matrix is sometimes serve as a checkmate for the calculations you do. So but let's assume you don't know sum exists, right? So let's close this. You don't know there's a function called exists. You're using Excel for the first time. There's what is called the function dialog. There's a dialog box that is called the function. So how you do this is, let's say you have equal to here now, right? So you come straight to your formula, and then in the formula you see what is called insert function. So you come to insert function. So in this insert function here, you don't know the function, but you know you want to sum. So you could, once you type sum for instance, and then you click go, it gives you what you need to use to get the answer. So sometimes you may have to just describe what you want to do, and Excel has this intelligence feature that is going to deduce what you need here. So this is the sum you need. So once you click on this, it also has where you wanted to select the numbers. So you can start selecting the number 1, you come here, number 2, number 3, but it's still going to give you the right answer, the 120, 100, 220, and once you click OK here, you have the answer there. But instead of doing this, you could just, in the first one here, you could just highlight everything here, right? So you could just highlight everything here, and then you click OK, and it still give you the same answer. So you notice again, still in the formulas, to go to the Excel function argument helper, all you need to do is come to formulas, then you start functions. But you notice there's a sign here, which is the auto sum. The auto sum just have some basic ones that you need. For instance, here we have sum here. You could just put in the sum, and then you select what you want, and you click OK, and you have the same thing here. So that's the function. And another way there's a shortcut. If you notice here, there's a shortcut for this, which is for you to use the Shift F3. So once you use Shift and then F3, it brings this. That's another fast way. So in Excel, how fast you're able to use shortcuts makes your analysis faster. So let's close this. Another way for you to bring it up, to bring the Excel function helper up, is to use this here. So insert function. So now we want to calculate. The next question is quantity of food sold the most. So there's a function in Excel called max that we're going to make use of. So we could just come here now, for instance, we have our equal to, and then you just do this here now, and you type max, go, and then you have your max appearing. Then you select. So the max, that's still the same thing. B, you just highlight this and you click OK, and it gives you here, which is 120. So this has already been sorted in descending order with the highest up here. So in subsequent lesson, we're going to understand how to do sorting and filtering and all of that. But now we are just focused on formulas and functions. So you can say this is 120 max. Similarly, you want to use the mean, you can insert function. But now let's assume you're already becoming a pro in using function. You could just type the mean function and then you hit the tab or you double click on it to select, and then you just select here and then you click here. And then it gives you the minimum number, which is 30. The same thing for the average, right? So you put your equal to, you type your average, but you take notes while using this. There's average, there's average A, there's average if, there's average ifs. They all have different functions. So the average if and the average if s or average ifs, we're going to see how it's being used in subsequent in the next couple of minutes here. That's on the conditional functions. So we're interested in the average. So you double click and then it's selected, right? So you could just select here and then you put OK here, and then it gives you the average. And then you want to see the fourth most sold item in Excel. So there's a function called large, right? So now let's assume you're hearing this for the first time and then you don't know how to input this formula directly. Let's make use of the argument helper here. So we come over here for the argument helper. So you tap large, for instance, here, and then you click on go. It brings the large for you. Now imagine it tells you the array. The array here means the range that you want to calculate from. So you select this, then the k here. Now the beauty about this function argument is that it gives you a definition, an idea as regards what you want to do. And then there's also the help on this function. You could click on this and then it takes you to the Microsoft Learn page where you read more about that particular function. So now once you click on this k, now it tells so the k is the position from the largest in the array or cell range of the value to return, simply saying that the k is now the value you want to bring out from the range you've selected in your array. So now the k here, it's the fourth. We said we want to know the fourth most sold food item, right? So we select fourth here, we select 4 here, the quantity of the fourth most sold item, and then we click OK, and it gives us 98, and you bring it here, which is what? Shawarma. So the same thing applies for small. So if you want to know the second least food sold, right, so just use small instead now because you already know the formula, or you can still make use of the argument same way, and then you select this and then you comma, and then we have second, which is 2, and then we cover this, and then we have 44. Similarly, you can use this to calculate the mode, which is the frequent quantity sold. So let's do this now. Mode, and then we select this 100, because we have here 100 appears twice while other ones appears once. The same thing for the median, equal to, we select all of this, and with this we're able to answer the median number of the quantity. So that means on the average 98 quantity was sold. That's the average, right? That's the medium, that's the middle number of the quantity that was sold here, not the average. So here you can also use count and count A. So count, for instance, here you use it to count numerical values, like how many values are here, how many numbers are here. So when you do this now, you use count, enter, and then you close. We have 7, which is, once you do this here, you also have it here from the status bar matrix. Now if you decide to, let's say you want to use count and you erroneously selected count A and you select this, you still have 7, right? But let's say now you want to calculate for this particular one here, this text value, and you decide to use, let's say you decide to use count, and you decide to use count here. You notice you have 0. So you only use count for numeric values. So you use count A. And count A, you use count A, then you have count A, and then you do this now. 7. So imagine we want to edit this, and then we decide to extend this to count the blanks as well. It omits blanks. So that's that about the basic functions. So next we're going to check the text functions in Excel. So these text functions in Excel are really important for cleaning data. So when we, maybe in the next module, or next on the module 3 or module 4 of this lesson, where we have to analyze, we're going to clean data, we do the analysis, visualize everything. You see how important these functions and all those basics that we've been learning comes into play. So now there are just some basic functions that I want us to understand here in the text functions. So now let's assume you have the rookie analyst all written with small letter. So this is the data, and you want it to be aligned properly, meaning the day to have the T as capital, R as capital, A as capital. So all you need to do is to use the function in Excel called proper. So once you have your proper here, and then you select here, and then you close, it automatically changes this for you to the proper way it's supposed to be. So this is usually important in analysis, so that you're going to have uniform appearance for your data, because once there's a difference or discrepancy, maybe R and then a small letter R and capital letter R, and then you are counting for small letter R, you not get the accurate answer in your analysis. Next is you definitely have data that are not properly collected, and those data probably has spaces in between. Like here now, this is double spaces, and you just want to make it clean. You make use of what? The trim function. So the trim automatically trims. So you use the trim, and then you can see it gives you something here. It said remove all spaces from a text string except for single spaces between words. So you enter this, you select this, and then you enter, and then you have trim, and then it has trimmed the spaces here. Now the next is the concat or concatenate. So the concat is used to join words together. So imagine if you have this day, you want to have it on one column, and then it's appearing in under 3 columns. You want to bring this together. So this concat has replaced concatenate, is replacing concatenate. So it's more advised to use concat instead of concatenate. You see concatenate and you see concat, and here is like a warning sign. So you make use of concat instead of concatenate. So you do concat, and then you select this, right? You select this, then you comma, you select this, comma, you select this, and then you close. But you notice it's going to have it joined together. So let's assume you want to have a space in between. All you have to do is just to edit this, and in between you're going to put a quote, then space, like a quote like this with a space, then you comma, and then you do the same thing here, space, then comma, and then once you enter this, you see you have the space there. So this and, or the ampersand, functions similar to concatenate. So instead of using concat, you could just make use of the and. So let's say this now, you could just have this equal to this, and then and this and this, and then you enter, you have this. So similarly, if you want to have the space in between this, you just have to edit this, and then you put the space for this. While concat and can be used to join text together, there's another function called the text function, which is by far a more proper way of joining text together, simply because it allows you to just specify the delimiter once, and then it even have an argument where you mention what you want to do with spaces, So it's let's see how this has been used. So let's start with an equal to, and then we have our text function text, then we have text join, and then you can see it concatenates a list of range of text strings using a delimiter. So a delimiter, it's just something that separates your text. It could be a space, it could be a comma, it could be an iPhone or what have you. So now let's put this tab here. So now always pay attention to the syntax. So Excel IntelliSense feature usually give you the syntax. So here it's telling you that you put in the delimiter first. So what is the delimiter that separates the text here? So these are our text. So the delimiter we want to use to separate the text is a space. So similar to what we did in concat. So instead of putting the space after each of this function, you could just put it at first. So it asks next, what do you want it to do with empty cells? We'll just say it should ignore, and then we double click on this, it selects true. Then we select next, is just for us to now select all what we want, and then we do this. And then we close, we enter, and we have this. So we only have to input this quotes once instead of multiple times, as you can see from the concat and and. So next we want to see is len. Len is just short form for saying length. So it's just used to calculate the length of a text string. So let's try doing this len, and then returns the number of characters in a string. So let's do this now, and then we select this, and then okay, we have 21. So we have 21 characters here. So this is particularly useful in some cases when you have some analysis to do. So next is the left, mid, or right. So imagine this is the address of Tip Top Taste Restaurant. So it's 24 Tip Top Street, Los Angeles, for instance. So, and you want to calculate just want to pick the apartment number. You're not interested in the street. You can make use of the left. So you put this equal to, then you have left. So you now select the text, right? You want, this is the text, then you separate it with the comma, and then the next you do is what the number you want to extract. If it's 4, you select 4, and then you close, and then it gives you the number 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice it only tells you number 2, simply because it also counts space. So if you have to edit this back, and then you put this back to 5, and then you have number 24. So you might be wondering the importance of this. These are very useful in cleaning data and also formatting your data so that you have your data in a specific and unique uniform format. So next is the find and the search, which basically does the same thing, but the only difference is that the find is case sensitive while the search is not case sensitive. The find function enables you to locate the number or to find at what number is a particular character. So now to make use of the find function, all we have to do, let's assume we want to find the position of at in email address, maybe like 10 email addresses or just this email address, amza@TheRookieAnalyst.com. So you just have to use the find, and then you do this. So now the next is for you to, what text are you looking for? Is the at, so put it in parentheses because it's a string, then we separate it with a comma. Then where do you want to look for this at? Is this email address here. If you have a series of email addresses, you just have to select as well. But usually if you have plenty of email addresses, so you select your email address here, and once you select this, you can as well state the number of character where you want it to appear, but in this case we just want it to count from the beginning, so we'll just close the parenthesis and then we click enter, and it tells us that the at appears in 6. So you might be wondering, how or when will you be able to use these functions? So usually in Excel you get to use multiple functions together. So now we're going to combine 2 functions, and then you see the importance of this particular function, especially the find function, which looks like it doesn't have a use. So let's assume we want to extract the numbers, or you want to extract an email that you have before you want to extract characters from this email address. That means you want to extract just the Hamza, anything before the ads here. So for us to be able to do that, you can just simply use the left function, for instance, equal to left. You select this text string, comma. So instead of putting the number keep here, we're just going to put in the same find function that we put here that gives us the 6. So let's put the find function. The same thing that we have here was find, and then what is it going to look for? It's going to look for the @ sign, right? Then we have the comma, and then the text string here, and then we close. But here we have to close the parentheses twice, because the first parenthesis we close is for the find function. Now we add another one for the left function. That is why you see we have Excel gives you different color for this. And once you enter this, it gives you Hamza @ right? So now but you want to extract just Hamza. You could just edit this and then you put -1, meaning if you -1 from whatsoever you have, then you have Hamza. Now the usefulness of this is it is pretty dynamic, meaning if this, let's say you have another email address here as info, or even this one changes to info itself, and then you just have this formula, it's going to give you exactly info. Next, we'll be looking at logical functions. Logical functions are used to test if a statement is true or false. We can also use this for numbers. So we'll start with the basic, which is the use of arithmetic sign like equal to, and, or less than, and then we'll progress to the use of if. So let's say, for instance, you have the data, you have the quantity of food items sold in January and February, and then you have a problem statement here that says you create a column comparing January and February sales. So in as much as this question is incomplete, comparison is in terms of is January greater than February, or is February sales greater than January for each of their food items? So you don't know, so you definitely have to ask to get clarity. But let's assume it's just to compare if the sales are the same, so we make use of equal to sign. So it's very easy. All we just have to do is come to the table here where we want it to be, and then we just, as easy as equal to is equal to, you know, when you want to start a formula or function in Excel, you have to start with an equal to, right? So you is cake sales for cake, is it equal to that, or the sales of cake in January is equal to that in February, and then you click OK, and Excel automatically tell you false, which clearly it shows that January is not equal to February. Now let's try the same thing here. You can, is equal to here, and then you could do this equal to, and then you select this, and it tells you it's true. As you can see, it's 100. But let's assume you want to determine for each of the food item, in what is January sales for each of the item greater than that of February, or is February greater than that of January? So all you just have to do now is we make use of the greater than sign. So is January greater than February? All we have to do is equal to, then we select for cake in January, then greater than, then we select for February, and then Excel tell you it's true. So if you want this to apply all true, you just drag this down, and it tells you true, false, true, true, true. So you can imagine how you could answer questions easily and even do some kind of incredible things in Excel. So these are just basic, and we'll continue advancing. And the more you practice, the more you use Excel, you get to know the importance of Excel and a lot of things that Excel could do. So now imagine you want to determine if, let's say the next, let's clear this now. So you could just come here and then clear content. So next you want to see if January sales is less than February. So we could just come to equal to here, and then same thing, January, and then we use the less than, and then we select this false. So you could use this in different scenarios, and then you can even use it as part of functions and even formulas. So now let's try something else now, which is the AND, right? So when you use the AND, then that means we're using it for multiple criteria, not just a direct comparison as this. So let's say we want to check if the sales for cake in January, it's more than the sales of all the food items in February, for instance. Or let's say is more than, if it's more than sales for cake and burger in February, instead of just cake that we compared earlier. So we'll do this equal to, then we'll make use of AND, right? So equal to this, then is it greater than this? Is it greater than this and this? Then we close it. and let's see. True. So that means cake is greater than the sales of cake for January is greater than the sales of cake in February and also the sales of burger in February. So assume you want to do for all of this up to that of the sales of beans in February. So which is, you look at it here, cell C8. All you just have to do is come here and change from C3 and then we put C8 and it checks all, which is still true because 120 is highest here, right? But let's now assume we'll just copy this and then we use for 100 here. So, and then this compares for this. But now let's change this. Is greater than cake, all of this. You see the answer, it's still going to be false. Because here it is equal to here. It's equal to this here. So that's how you use the AND. But now let's assume you want to check for, instead of checking if the sales of cake in January is greater than the sales of both cake and burger in February, you want to check if the sales of shawarma, for instance, here in January equal to, and shawarma here, it's greater than we want to check if shawarma is greater than that of cake, burger, pizza in January. Then we close. You can see it's false, right? So it's false simply because shawarma is 98 is definitely greater than sales of cake in February and also greater than sales of pizza in February, but it is not greater than burger. So we use AND. So we want to check, compare if 98 is greater than all of this. So the answer is no, even though it's greater than some of this. But let's assume you just want to see if it's greater than either of this. Then you don't use AND, you use what is called OR. And then it's definitely true because it's greater than either of this. So that's how you use simple arithmetic signs like equal to, greater than, less than, and or to do comparison and then to get if a statement or a number is true or false. You can at the same time use this for comparing items like this, maybe like spelling is cake equal to burger. The answer would definitely be false. Let's try that and see. Is equal to cake equal to burger, and then you do, it's definitely false because this is cake, this is burger. The spelling is obviously different. So if they're probably at the same spelling, then definitely it's the same. So that's how you use that. So now we want to see the if statement. So the if statement is just a logical statement, but kind of advanced compared to the equal to, greater than, less than that we've been using. So the if, it's usually used to check multiple conditions, and you could even use it to categorize items or categorize numbers. So imagine you said if the rookie analyst is greater than other data analysis company, output yes, else no, for instance. So let's assume we're using the factual is definitely no because it's not greater than, for instance. So that's just the concept of if, like if this is greater than this, output this. If it's not greater than this, output that. So for you to understand, basically you can simply just start using your if. For instance, okay, we have now we want to use it to answer the second problem question. Which month has the highest sales for cake, January or February, for instance, right? So that's a question, but for us to be able to use the if itself, we'll definitely want to use it to compare, to categorize the sales target into greater than or less than. That means which one is above the target and which one is below the target. So we have our sales target 80. So this means that any sales that is greater than 80 is above the target, while those anyone below the below 80 is less than the target. So let's use this here to categorize this. You can just start writing if statement straight up, or you just assume you're confused about it. Then you come to here, you launch the then we put our if here, then go, and then we select it here. So come here. So this is the logical test. So look at what the logical state is: any value expression that can evaluate to true or false. So we want to see, is this here, right, greater than what we have here, which is the sales target, 80. If it is, then write output above target. And if the value is false, you output below target, and you click OK. So, and the beauty of this is, assuming you're supposed to put quotation somewhere, or just some little error in your inputting your formula, Excel function dialog will definitely give you a suggestion, as you can see from what we just did now. So now this is the if statement here. So we just want to check, is the sales of cake here, is it greater than the target? If it's greater than the target, then, which is 80, 120 is definitely greater than 80. So that means this is above target. Then it's written as above target. Okay. So if we just drag this now, we definitely have the same thing above target here. But does that mean all of this is above target here? Definitely no. Simply remember absolute and relative referencing. These are not referencing these cells. From here downward are not referencing these cells, as you can see. So we have to lock the sales target again with what? The dollar sign. So for us to do that, we have to come back to our formula here, and then we lock it here like this, and then we go enter. So now if you should drag this down, it gives us the accurate ones. You can see this has changed to below target. 75, 45, 30 are definitely below this. So that's how we've used if statement to categorize it. So imagine you are a sales manager, and then you have your sales supervisors in the market, and then they've already made their sales for the month or even for the year, and then you want to calculate their incentives to see who should get the incentive, or who should get a bonus, end of year bonus, or who should get the monthly sales bonus. You can just make use of the if statement, and then you categorize, and then above statement. So that means, assuming this full type will not be the name of each of your sales supervisor, and from here you could just filter, and you can even visualize this, and then you can easily see those that is above target and those that are below the target. So that's that about logical functions, especially the use of if. We will still see how we could use if to answer most of case questions under conditional functions. So gradually we're becoming pros at using Excel formulas and functions. On is conditional functions. Conditional functions are used to output result when one or multiple conditions are met. And one of the common ones you will have to use as a beginner into Excel are just 10, the if up to max ifs. And we have 10 problem statement questions that you can use either of this or combination of this to answer it. So we are going to answer 5 of these questions in this particular hands-on, while the remaining 5 will be left for practice exercise. So, and we already have a use case description of each of these functions, when and how to use it. So let's start. If the first question is, did we sell more rice or salad in Lagos? So remember, we in logical functions we already understand how to use if. So let's start. If, then we launch our function helper, and then we type if, then go, and we have if here. We select, it's already selected, you click OK. Now you select your logical text. So the logical test is any value expression that can be evaluated as true or false. What is our logical value? Our logical value is the quantity of food. Did we sell more rice or salad in Lagos? So this is the data set for Lagos, and this is the quantity. All you have to do is select the quantity for rice here. Is it greater than that of what salad in Lagos? If true, then it should output rice instead of true or false or yes or no. And if false, then it should output salad. And then we click OK. And here we have salad. So did we sell more rice or salad in Lagos? We sell more salad. Let's look at it. So we have rice here. This is Lagos. Rice quantity sold is 75. Salad is 110. So our function works perfectly well. So that's another use case for if, different from what we used earlier to categorize sales as above target or below target. So you could use the statement as much as you deem it fit. Now we want to check at the function SUMIF. Remember, in the basic functions, we look at sum, but here we want to add condition to our sum. And for us to understand this, there's a question that what is the quantity of food that was sold in Lagos? So here we have our SUMIF equal to, so we learned the SUMIF, the function helper, then we type SUMIF, you click on go, and then it's selected here. You have to make sure the SUMIF is selected and not SUMIFS or SUMIFS. So for SUMIF now we click OK. So now it tells you what is the range. Is the range or cells you want to evaluate. So the range we want to evaluate is what here. This is the range we want to evaluate. That's where the branch is here, Lagos. Then what is the criteria? The criteria is what? That this is the entire range, but our criteria is what? Lagos. So we select Lagos here. We select our range, then you click on criteria next. So you select the criteria to be Lagos. You can as well type Lagos. It's still going to output the same thing. So now the sum range, this is where the quantity is. As you can see, so once you click on this, it's going to give an int as regards what it should be at the, like for instance, now this is sum rate at the actual sales to sum. So it has to be the numeric value that you want it to be sum. So now the sum rate is this. So we just select this range and then we click OK. And we have 678. So the question, the quantity foods that was sold in Lagos is 678. And another easier way for you to do this is just, this has already been sorted, Lagos. You just select this and then you check up to the end, Lagos here. And then you check the status bar metric, says 670, 678. Now imagine where you have a large data set and then they are not arranged like this, they are well scattered. So your SUMIF is going to come in handy. Haven't seen how we could use the SUMIF to answer the question like the quantity of food that was sold only in Lagos. So now let's try to calculate for the quantity of food that was sold also in Kaduna, for instance. So let's go equal to SUMIF. Then we open our function helper. Then we just type in SUMIF. We already have it selected. We click on OK. So now this is the range. What is our range? Is the range of cells you want to evaluate. So we want to evaluate this cell here. So we select our range. Then what is the criteria? So you remember when we're doing that of Lagos, we only selected that of Lagos here in the criteria. We selected Lagos and we mentioned that we could also type. So instead of, now we want to do for Kaduna, instead of selecting Lagos, we're going to type Kaduna. And once we type in Kaduna, then we select the summary. That is where the actual calculation is going to happen. So we click on this and we have 578. We can confirm this here, as you can see, 538. So now the next question is food items sold in branches that end with A. So we've done the one for Kaduna. It's just left for us to do the one for Abuja. We can also do the one for Abuja separately, and then we'll now add the two together, right? But instead of doing that, we could just edit this same one by using a wildcard. So let's just copy this one here, and then let's bring it here. So, or let's just start afresh instead of copying. So we put equal to, we have our function here. So SUMIF, then our range is, this is our range here. Our criteria, we're going to type Kaduna still. we're going to type Kaduna. Then the sum range is this one. Here we click on OK. So we have the same 568, but this time around we want to use it to answer a question like all the branches that end with A. So imagine you've partitioned your branches by maybe region, maybe northern, south, or west region, and you want to just do the calculation for the northern region. So take off the northern region as the A. So you want to use a wildcard. So we're going to use a wildcard here, which is the sign of asterisk, to calculate for anything that has to do with A, that ends with A. So all we need to do is just to edit this one that has Kaduna and remove everything that has before A. So we have just A remaining, then we'll put in the asterisk, which is the wildcard, and then we click on what? OK. And then we have this 1,236. So that's another way we could use our sum if. Again, you can confirm this by just selecting, this is Kaduna all the way to Abuja. You just select it down and then you look at the status bar matrix here, which tells you just 1,236, just as we have here. So next is the sum ifs. The sum if s or sum ifs is a function that works just as the sum if, but in this case it's multiple criteria. Imagine you having sum if times 2, like more like the plural of sum if. So that's why you have sum ifs. So you could contain multiple criteria. So now we have a question like the quantity of pizza sold in Lagos. So for us to be able to use this to answer, we have equal to here. We launch our function helper again, and then we type sum ifs this time around, not sum if. Sum if s here, and then we click OK. So when we click OK, the first thing it asks us is the sum range. That is the range we want to sum. So here we are concerned about the quantity of food. We want to answer the question like the quantity of pizza that is sold in Lagos. Unlike the previous one that we only concerned about the quantity of food that was sold, now it's becoming more specific, sold in Lagos, sum if. So we had a layer of condition to it. So we have sum if here, sum if s, we select our sum range, which is this quantity sold here. Then we have our first criteria, which is the criteria range. Where do we want to pick the first criteria from? That's Kaduna, right? In Lagos. So we select here, then the criteria is Lagos itself from the question. Then next is the other criteria, which is pizza. So now it's coming to what? Criteria range 2. So we select the range here of where pizza is. So we select pizza, we select the range, then we now come to criteria 2, and then we select pizza. So now let me just pause here to reiterate how this works. So when you see a sum range, it's talking about the values you actually want to calculate. While the criteria range 1 is just the entire range where your criteria can be found. So where is Excel going to look for in terms of that criteria? Then continuously like that, you could continue building on this. So the next here is just for you to click on OK, and we have some 100. So you can just easily look at it here. Where's Lagos? This Lagos, and then this pizza, and then what's the quantity 100, and that's what we have here. So now let's take a step further. Now imagine you want to calculate for pizza that is sold in Lagos and Abuja, and let's say you want to calculate for quantity of pizza and burger, or let's say pizza and shawarma that was sold in Lagos. So that makes it to become 2. So let's edit this. So we just come back here to our function wizard here, where we want to select this. So in our criteria here, remember here, this is our A4, that's where we select pizza. So instead of selecting pizza alone, we're going to select pizza, and let's take this out. We're going to select the pizza and shawarma, and then we click on OK. So we have this output 2 results, 100 for pizza and 98 for shawarma. But let's imagine you want to have it in just one cell. Remember previously we talked about how you could combine functions, right? So here we're going to use sum. We're going to combine sum with sum if, and it's just simple. We just edit this here, come back here, because we want to have the sum of pizza and shawarma. We already have our formula, sum if s formula, calculating for pizza and shawarma, but now we want to sum it to just be one value in one cell. All we need to do is write the sum, then put it in a bracket, and then we close the bracket, and then it sums it up for us as 198. So which is what you have here, 198. So that's how you use sum if s. So depending on the scenario that comes, you could apply these functions. So last we're going to look at average if. So but before then, all other functions like count if s, min ifs, max ifs, that it's here, which you use to answer this question, work with the same syntax as the sum if and the average if that we're going to look at now. And at the same time, you refer to the basic that we already had of the average itself, now adding the condition to it, and then you use it to answer this question. Now let's look at average if. We want to, what is the average quantity of food sold in Kaduna? We just put in our equal to, we launch our function helper, and once we launch our function helper, we search for average if, and then we click on go, and we have our average if here, so we select average if, and then we have our range. So this is the range of the cell we want to evaluate. So where is the range at? So this is our range here. Quantity here we have here, then the criteria, that is the criteria in that range, is Kaduna, so we select Kaduna. Now the average range is the range where the value actually is, so we select this, and then we click OK, and then it's average only Kaduna here. If we had used just average and then we select all of this, going to average everything for Lagos, Abuja, Kaduna, but here we'll just use average for Kaduna. So I will leave you to practice, to flex your Excel formula and functions muscles that you've acquired here, that you've gained here, to answer this remaining 5 questions. If you have any concern, please feel free to reach out. Next, we'll be looking at the lookup functions. So the lookup functions, as it sounds, is used to look for a value in a table or in a differentiate. So imagine you want to check for the quantity of food item that is bought by Bola, for instance. So because this data set is small, you can just easily look at this here, and then you could see, oh, she bought 10. But imagine you have a large data set, or you have multiple. So how will you be able to do that? You can make use of lookups, and one of the most widely used lookup is Vlookup, and the Vlookup is also being replaced by Xlookup now. So we are going to look at how we can use Vlookup to answer this question, and then the differences between Vlookup and Xlookup. So the Vlookup, we use it to answer this question, quantity of food bought by Bola. So let's start. So we have this equal to, and then let's launch our function helper, and then we search for Vlookup, go, and then we have our Vlookup here, we click. So now Vlookup works with the syntax of selecting the value you want to look for, and then you select the table where the value can be found. However, it has to be in the first column. For instance, now let's try this now. It said lookup value is the value to be found in the first column of the table. So Bola here can be found in the first column of this table, then our Vlookup will work fine. But assuming we're searching for cake here, and then we want to use Vlookup, it's not going to work. We'll see that. So let's try with Bola first. We select here, that's the lookup value, Bola. We come to the table array. We select the table array here. Then the column index number. The column index number simply means the number of the column that you want to return. So the question is quantity of food bought by Bola. So quantity of food bought is in column C, which is number 3. So here we select number 3. That's the column index number. Then the range lookup is just to tell you, do you want exact match or not? So for this, we want exact match, so we just use false. And then we click on OK. And we have 10, which is just the quantity bought by Bola. That's Vlookup. We can answer the same thing with Xlookup, the same question with Xlookup, but take note of the difference in the syntax for Xlookup. So bring our function helper, and then we search for Xlookup this time around. Xlookup. Then go. We have Xlookup here. Then you click OK. Now look at this now. We have the lookup value, and then we have the lookup array, not table array. So the major one of the difference, if you want to answer the same question with Xlookup, is instead of selecting this whole table here, we're only going to select the column where our lookup value Bola can be found. And Xlookup also has additional function like match mode, search mode, which you may not find the need to use them. So let's answer the same question here. We have Bola, we select the lookup array here, that's column A. Then the return array also, instead of putting the number 3, that's where the quantity bought is, as in Vlookup, here we just have to select the return array, and then we click on OK. And we have the same answer as 10, right? So now, you may be wondering, what's the difference? So specifically, the difference lies in the fact that VLOOKUP can only be used to search from the first column. Now let's try to use VLOOKUP to answer this question, cake. You notice clearly that this cake can only be found in column B and not column A. So let's try to use VLOOKUP to answer it here. So equal to VLOOKUP, equal to, then we bring up our function helper, then we search VLOOKUP. Okay, so now the first thing lookup value is cake. Then the table array, we click here, the text box here, look table array, we select the table, and then the column index is 3, and we click OK. We still have what? 10, but 10 is for what? For Bola, and not the quantity here, cake, 15. So that's to tell you that the problem with VLOOKUP. If we want to answer the same question with Xlookup, let's use that. Xlookup here, in search function, we search for Xlookup. We click OK. So lookup value is cake. Lookup array, we look up array here, and then return array is the quantity bot, and then we click OK. 15. So you can see Xlookup is right, 15, and VLOOKUP is returning 10. So sometimes the fact that your function runs does not mean you've actually done the right analysis. So it's important to note this, that VLOOKUP can only be used if the lookup value is in the first column. In the case of Bola, can be found in the first column. We have the accurate answer. But here, cake is not in the first column, it's actually in this second column here. And you can't use VLOOKUP. That's why we're having a wrong answer here. Now, the second difference is you can use Xlookup to return multiple values. Take for instance now, we want to have another third question, which is we want to see the quantity of cake. We want to see the quantity, and we want to see, okay, here, quantity of food bought by Bola, right? We want to see the quantity and type of food bought by Bola. So question 3 now, let's bring this here. Question 3, let's say quantity and type of food bought by Bola. So we expect that instead of just returning the quantity here, we want to also see the type of food. VLOOKUP will not be able to do that for you, but Xlookup can. So let's see. This is how we do it here in Xlookup here, and then Xlookup go, you select OK. The lookup value is Bola here, and then the lookup array, where is Bola is here, and the return array we can just select, instead of just here, we're going to select both here, and then we click OK, and it's going to return the true value for us, Bola Burger 10. But if we make use of VLOOKUP, there's practically no how we can do that with VLOOKUP. Let's try that. You see, this is VLOOKUP. So we select the lookup value, which is this, and then we select the table array here. This is the table array, and then the column index. So column index, you're expected to just return just a number, either column 1 or column 2. So it's either we return the value for food type by pressing column 2, or we return for column C. So there's practically no how we could bring the two together as we've seen in Xlookup. So we could just use this, and that's all. So now next is the date functions. So date and time in Excel is practically one of the easiest formula in Excel. So assuming you want to put today's date, you just need to put on equal to, and then today, then you close and open your parenthesis, and it gives you today's date. Alternatively, you could just use the short key, which is Control and the semicolon, and it also gives you that. Also, this now function is also a function that you could use to show you the dates and time currently. So it's currently 1814, 2nd of November, and that's why we have this date here. So have you ever imagined auditing formulas in Excel? I mean, a case where you already have an Excel sheet with data that has already been analyzed, and then you needed to find out which formula was used to get what answer, or what are the total number of formulas that were used, how are they connected to each other. If you've been wondering, then the auditing formula is going to help you out. So here in Excel, there are 3 to 4 basic ways for you to answer all these your questions. The first one is to use the formula text function, which is equal to formula text, and then you select the cell, and then it's going to display the formula that was used. So remember this particular table, which was one of the table we used in our basic calculations of Excel. So here you use the formula text to show the formulas in a particular cell. So the next is for you to just display all the formulas, all the cells with the formulas using the control and then tilde. Control and then tilde shows all the formulas. As you can see here, it shows all the formulas that was used. And if you want to hide it, you press the control plus tilde again, and then it goes off. That's the second. Now imagine you want to highlight the cells that has formulas. Imagine you want to highlight the cells that has formulas. All you need to do is you come to the home, you click on the home in the ribbon, and then you come under editing, you see find and select. And once you click find and select, you see formulas, and then this were all the places that we have used formulas in the previous lessons. So imagine you want to highlight this, maybe using color blue for instance, or you want to highlight it green, then you do this, and then it highlights all the places that formulas were used, which is the same thing as where you use the control tilde the other time. As you can see, control tilde showing all the formulas, right? Control tilde, and then it brings it back. So this is how you highlight the formulas. And then the last is that you may want to show the relationship between the cells, like how are the formulas connected. So the next thing you just have to do to answer that is just come up to formulas, and then you see trace precedent and you see trace dependent. Here is you want to show arrows indicating which cells affect the value of the current cell, selected cell. So let's say we select this cells and want to see, and then we click here. These are all the cells that affect this particular cell. And if we want to show the formula, we click on show formula, and then it shows this formula. This show formula works as the shortcut for the control tilde that we've seen earlier. Now we hide it back, and then you can see show precedent. Let's assume we want to show dependent, so let's try to use this, and then let's click on show, and then we'll trace the dependent. So tracing the dependent to see. This is how to audit formulas in Excel, and with this we're going to end our lesson for today. And I believe by now we are already pros when it comes to the use of formulas and functions in Excel. And don't forget to do your practice exercise and then share your feedbacks. See you in the next lesson.